My doctor told me my cholesterol was way out of control and wanted me to take statins. Now, I didn't like the side effects, and after talking to my doctor, she told me all about Cholesterade. Cholesterade puts some hip in my hop and glide in my stride. Cholesterade not only reduces cholesterol, but it adds fiber to your diet. Cholesterade tastes great, and you're going to love it as much as I do. For more information, go to cholesterade.com and purchase Cholesterade on Amazon. Cholesterade, clinically proven to reduce cholesterol levels. It is time for Cholesterade. I hope you're taking a Cholesterade. Make it part of your daily regime. Cholesterade, clinically proven to reduce cholesterol levels, promotes probiotic function, supports digestive health, all natural flavors, tastes great. I use it every day. Get more information at cholesterade.com. We're going to talk to the medical director for Cholesterade, Dr. Goldfarb. Dr. Goldfarb, can you give us a little bit about your background?
After completing medical school in Chicago, I decided that I wasn't sure which field I wanted to go into, so I went into the path of a general surgery path and then proceeded into a vascular surgery specialty. So practiced general and vascular surgery for several years and saw all kinds of problems that patients encountered with lifestyle, and unfortunately encountered a whole lot of patients that had high cholesterol that led to a lot of vascular diseases, in addition to some of the diseases that I encountered in general surgery. And I really thought that lifestyle to patients and patients could improve this. They wouldn't be seeing me at the time for their conditions. And that's when I really was looking into different kind of treatments and lifestyle changes that patients could make.
When you do vascular surgery, doctor, what exactly is that?
Well, vascular surgery in itself is a disease of the blood vessels, mostly the arterial blood flow, which is the blood flow that comes from the heart and puts blood down into the various areas of the body. And we focused a lot on the lower extremities, which are the furthest area away from the heart. And when people had a lot of plaque in their vessels, that's when we had to intervene in different ways and bypass clogged vessels, clean them out, and do various type of things. And that's the common denominator there was that patients always had a lot of plaque in those areas, and cholesterol produces a lot of that plaque in those vessels.
And what would you say is a great way to deal with cholesterol overall? And what I mean by that is once a person is on the operating table, I think that it's probably, I guess, at a point where surgery is the only option. My two questions are, is there any way to reverse the damage done by a bad diet, per se? Is there any way we could avoid getting such operations in the first place?
Sure. And obviously that has a lot to do with diet and exercise. Unfortunately, genetics plays a major role, and some people are just going to get that because of bad genetics. But a majority of the patients could avoid this type of thing if they could really change their diet and exercise pattern and various other healthy habits they can employ.
Can you reverse the effects of cholesterol? I'm going to go back many years. My grandfather died at the age of 57. I was only 4 years old when I lost him. I don't think I ever quite got over that because I feel like I was robbed of the time that I could have spent with him. And I've seen study after study where grandparents are really important to the development of a child. And I was thinking about his diet. It was Eastern European, Polish food, Russian food, German food, and you know what that is. Bratwurst and kielbasa and cabbage. Well, cabbage isn't bad for you. Pierogies. I would imagine a lot of butter and creams. What is a common sense approach to all of this? And how could you reverse the effects of those bad diets like I mentioned, because I don't want to die young, that's for sure.
That's something that genetics to you probably is pretty germane, so it should be something that you should try to change your lifestyle if you are having an overabundance of fats and carbohydrates in your diet. Essentially, you can reverse it to an extent. There are definitely types of treatments and medications out there, and one of them that we use, such as Cholesterade, and we'll obviously talk further about it, is something that people should use every day, because the feeling is that if you can get rid of the, quote, bad cholesterol, which is the LDL cholesterol, you really can increase the blood flow in your vessels and stop the cholesterol plaques, as we call it, from building up and closing up the arteries. I always compare this to my patients with saying it's like your hose. You're out there watering the lawn, and if you look back and you see that it has a twist or that there's something blocked inside the flow, then you're not going to get as much of that water coming out the other end of the hose. Mm-hmm. So there are ways that we can help increase that flow through that hose by getting rid of that bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol.
Before we talk about Cholesterade and some of the medications that we're all familiar with, such as statins, what is the overall health of America today, Doctor?
Well, unfortunately, the health in the United States is probably one of the worst in the entire world because we have too many fats and carbohydrates. There are three types of food groups: the fats, the carbohydrates, and the proteins. And unfortunately, the fats and carbohydrates far outweigh the amount of protein we take in our diet, and that lays down those plaques in our blood vessels. So the majority of people and the environment of what we're introduced to in our daily lives is so bad that almost the majority, and the numbers vary, but the majority of patients suffering from high cholesterol is tremendous in this country, and we should change that. We have to exercise more, and I'm sure everybody listening heard this. You have to exercise more, and you have to change your diet. Mm-hmm. Obesity being the leading cause, an underlying cause of all these issues.
Those are all valid points that you make, but I think people go above and beyond the diet in other habits that are kind of nasty, and we'll go through them one at a time. Let's start with the worst habit that you can possibly adopt, and that's smoking. What are all of the bad effects of smoking?
Smoking itself, obviously, when you're taking a foreign substance into your lungs, will destroy the little bronchioles and the little vasculature. In addition to that, which supplies those areas in the lungs just from inhaling a foreign substance deep into the lungs. That's number one, has been shown for years, and obviously if people are listening to the news, the vaping issue is such a major issue because people are dying again if they even cut down on the amount of cigarettes that they're smoking. But smoking in itself has absolutely been an acceptable social situation many years ago. In fact, you look at old movies, everybody in the movies is smoking. So the country has done a decent job of trying to tell everybody that inhaling cigarettes is bad, and smoking itself is still a major habit. So people, even if they're not smoking as many cigarettes, have been vaping and doing other things. And the smoke itself getting into your lungs causes that. And then it's a cascade effect of not only producing problems for the lungs, then it's the overall health of an individual. So if you're smoking, you're not breathing fresh, clean air, you can't exercise as much, you don't exercise as much, obesity comes into the role, people are tired and they can't function as well, and then it's that downhill cascade effect.
All right. Now, how about alcohol?
Well, alcohol consumption, and it's interesting because one glass of wine a day, by the way, for basic information, has been touted as a good thing, a bad thing, a terrible thing. It can lead to liver damage because, obviously, over abuse of it. But alcoholic consumption in a moderation as a social drinker and a real social drinker, maybe a couple times in a weekend or so, or a couple times a week, has been shown to probably have an overall benefit. Mm-hmm. But anything exceeding that is now a problem of chronic alcohol abuse, which, again, is another chronic problem in this country and worldwide. And that leads to multiple liver damage down the road. And when that leads to liver damage, your body can't clear out because the liver functions as a clearing station. Now that decreases its function, and lo and behold, now you're in chronic liver failure, and God forbid, you get jaundice and die from overdose of alcohol abuse.
You're listening to Cholesterade Radio. We have Dr. Goldfarb, our medical director, on the line with us. Now we're going to take a shift and discuss another problem, which is opioids. Dr. Goldfarb, what is your guidance in regard to pain relievers?
Certainly people do have pain. And in acute pain, patients should be taking medications that are going to cure that acute pain. But unfortunately, the addictive nature of these opioids has produced to me, that's a very, very soft spot in my heart because I see it every day, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these patients are suffering with this chronic pain that started out as acute pain, i.e. a lot of back pain and that type of thing, and then they're taking these opioids to relieve it. And once they stop taking it, then they feel that little twinge of pain because they don't rehab it and do it correctly. They just, quote, it's easier just to take a pill.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing that, then they get into the fact that they can't exist without that.
Right.
So it's an extremely addictive mental behavior pattern as well as turning into a physical behavior situation.
Yeah, it seems like we're doing everything we can to destroy ourselves and our quality of life, thinking that all the technology around us is going to save us and that there's going to be some sort of panacea wonder drug down the pike that will cure all our ills. But it's kind of foolish to think that way, and it's not using wisdom properly. And even the use of over-the-counter medications is misused to the point people don't understand the danger that they're placing themselves in when, for instance, they take too much of a particular over-the-counter pain reliever, whether it's aspirin or a Tylenol, and acetaminophen or a Motrin type of NSAIDs. A lot of people, they think if they got a really bad headache, instead of taking the recommended dosage, they take more than the recommended dosage, thinking that the headache will go away faster. And just to clear up any confusion, give us your best advice about how to do something simple like that. When you have a bad headache or you have a cold, common little nicks and scrapes that we deal with, I think is a good starting point because it's something small to start with.
I'm a firm believer, for example, if you do have a headache and you want to take even an aspirin or an NSAID or even Tylenol, you should take the recommended dose and not exceed that, because once you start exceeding those doses, that's how the addictive behavior pattern starts. So it's certainly not unreasonable that you start out taking, again, the recommended dose, maybe between 500 and 1,000 milligrams of the Tylenol, for example. But again, you take an overabundance of Tylenol, that's a tremendous effect on your liver.
That's right.
And that whole cascade happens.
Yeah.
Aspirin, if you take too much, can irritate the lining of your stomach and can cause some bleeding in that regard.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting at, like that these are common sense things that we all have to be aware of. Now let's move over, Dr. Goldfarb, to Cholesterade, which is clinically proven to reduce cholesterol levels. It promotes probiotic function, supports digestive health, all natural flavors. I use it every day. I've started using it. What I really like about this, and I know my cholesterol's going to go lower because I've changed my lifestyle, my eating habits, and those are all good things. Still have problems with the blood pressure, and we'll get to that maybe some other time. What I really find the best part of this product, the additional fiber that's added to my diet, and I just feel like I'm getting all the toxins and the bad stuff. It's pushing it out of my body. Is that, in a sense, how it works?
Yes, that's a major part of how it works. One of the problems with the diet in this country is we don't take enough fiber. If we can get a lot of those toxins and clear them out of our systems, it certainly is extremely helpful to do that. And again, we lack a high-fiber diet, and if you can take something that has such an excellent high-fiber content like Cholesterade, it really does help with your overall health, including the getting rid of those high cholesterol problems.
What causes the cholesterol levels to go down by using this product, Cholesterade?
It's really known and recommended by the American Medical Association today that we should keep our serum cholesterol levels down. The old recommendation is that we wanted to keep it less than what we call 200 milligrams.
Right.
And what happens is when that cholesterol builds up again, creates that plaque and decreasing the flow in our blood vessels. So if we're able to reduce our serum cholesterol lower than 200, that reduces our risk of the coronary artery atherosclerosis and actually can reverse that plaque buildup in those vessels. So what we found is the fact that if this cholesterol will bind in those vessels, and we can stop that binding, and then once it's binded there, we can actually start almost like cleaning those vessels out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that people should really realize, that we're able to reduce our serum cholesterol, reduce our risk of heart attacks, reduce our risk, because most heart attacks are from blocked blood vessels, and reduce our risk of vascular disease and all those continued health issues. So what I like about this is the fact that it's a natural product where you don't have to have, quote, a prescription for it, and i.e. all the bad side effects that you get with the prescription lowering cholesterol drugs, and the fact that it's able to clear and help you clear your body of all those toxins and reduce your own cholesterol levels.
How is this clinically proven?
Being a physician, we're kind of one of these at least I am a scientific geek, and I'm like from the show me state, so I have to be sure it works.
Uh-huh.
So what we did is we did a multi-center study after Dr. Cade's study, and for your audience and people that want to know who invented it was Dr. Cade, who, by the way, was the inventor of Gatorade. So what it was is that in my practice, we had, when we do our procedures, we obviously get a series of blood work prior to us performing a procedure. And surprisingly to my staff, not surprising to me, was the fact that about 80% of these patients had cholesterol levels exceeding 200. So by definition, and by the recommendations, again, by AMA, we should lower that cholesterol, and now it's recommended that people should be on a cholesterol-lowering medication of some type over the age of 50, that we want to reduce this cholesterol number down below 200. So what we did was we took all patients, whether it was from genetics, lifestyle, because obviously we see all types of patients, different ethnic backgrounds, cultures, and we gave them a sample of the product that comes in the container, and we asked them to be compliant, asked them obviously to try to change their lifestyle, but none of them do.
Yeah, of course.
And what we did is we studied these patients for a series of 3 months and wanted to see whether or not their cholesterol numbers are going to change. And it was really fascinating that the patients really had a tremendous decrease, almost mirroring the decrease that we saw with the prescription medications in lowering their total cholesterol. They're lowering the LDL and the high-density lipoproteins increased. And most important to me was also the tremendous decrease in what we call the triglycerides.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we studied it, and then I had several of my colleagues throughout the country also doing the same thing, and we put all this data together, had it analyzed, and I was able to reproduce numbers that even exceeded Dr. Cade's original study on this.
You basically did the scientific method, and you proved it a few times or more than a few times to make sure that your conclusions are pretty much the same when you looked at all the data. That's very good. Good way to do science. Let's talk about statins for a second. What I've read is the downside of these side effects. For instance, and I'm guessing based on what I've read, and I'm not a medical professional, nor do I claim to be one. I'm just very interested in this kind of stuff, that there is a link between statins and dementia. My theory of this is it malaffects the fatty acids that are necessary for brain function. Is there anything to it? And I also noticed that for the slight time that I was on statins, I might have been on for a week, I noticed there was a lot of pain in my muscles, and I got twitching in my lower legs, and I thought to myself, well, it must be something to do with this medication. I'm not taking this anymore. And I kind of got in a fight with my doctor about it, refused to take it. Then he said, well, your numbers show that a person with these numbers here should be taking a statin. And I said, well, I don't want it. He goes, well, then you're just, you might end up getting a stroke. Just remember, I warned you. And I said, okay, well, I'll take that risk. And then I go back 6 months later, and the same doctor says, well, according to your numbers in an article I read in the New York Times, you're not really a good candidate for statins. Wow. Here's a guy who went to a medical school and probably got top-notch training, and now all of a sudden he makes a change in how he prescribes the medication based on an article in the New York Times, and you wonder why people are so confused about what they should do.
Certainly, you hit on a really important subject, and I think for people listening, this is really an important facet no matter what doctors' philosophies are. Number one, statins do play a very good role and have a really great effect. My particular sister was on a statin for a very short period of time, not even 2 weeks, and honestly couldn't take it with the same type of symptoms, had severe muscle cramping, and just didn't tolerate the medication. But for several patients that do take statins, it actually does do a good thing, and the risk-benefit, i.e., some of those things that are better if you were to reduce it, far outweigh the, quote, side effects. However, here's an interesting thought. The problem with statins are the more that you do take, it seems that and this is pretty much documented now, that the side effects go up as you need a higher dose of them. So even patients that are taking statins, if you could lower the dose and maybe supplement it with something like cholesterade, then you kind of had the best of both worlds in a lot of ways because of the fact that maybe you won't have to be on such a high dose. And again, I'm telling you, it is dose related for most people, or possibly can get off them entirely. So in our patients, which we studied, we had several patients that we were able, number one, to get off their statins that were on it, and the patients that weren't even on a statin and were trying to diet control of it, they all reduced below the 200 level. So we really had such an incredible result that we felt like there's no reason why everybody, even if you have really bad genetic hypercholesterolemia, as we call it, shouldn't be on something like this. You can lower your dose, lower your side effects, lower your risks. And here it's such a simple thing to add to your diet every day, in addition to the high fiber, which you're not going to really get, which you don't get, by the way, with the statins.
Well, this is what I like about cholesterol myself. Right here on the label, it says promotes probiotic function, helping overall gut health, helps curb appetite safely, promoting weight management, helps aid digestion, easily dissolves in liquid. And I like the taste of it. It's really good. And I've handed it to a lot of my friends. I have Tiki Barber, and we've done an infomercial with him. He likes the Cholesterade. I just handed it to my friend Boomer Esiason just this morning. I said, Boomer, this is for you. Take it. And, he's in my age group, and I think people in my age group, we just don't think about this kind of stuff, especially us regular guys in the locker room, right? Something that we have to consider to eat healthier. Cholesterade is available on Amazon.com and various drugstores and retailers near you. You can always go to cholesterade.com to get information about the product. I would challenge you to take it. Just try it. See how you like it, and I think you'll get the benefits out of it. Also, it's good to be more regular. It's amazing how many people just don't know how much better life could be if they went to the bathroom on a regular basis. And you know what I'm talking about, Doctor. Also, drink plenty of water. Before we wrap up, Dr. Goldfarb, I want you to give us good or bad, or maybe give us an answer of maybe in moderation, because there's so much information coming all at one time. It's good to talk to your doctor about things like this. What's the deal with cheese, good or bad?
Moderation.
Okay. What about milk, good or bad?
They say it's not good for adults anymore, but I think it's healthier in children, although almond milk's probably better now.
I was going to say I usually go for the almond milk myself. Coffee, good or bad?
Coffee definitely is good for you, again, in moderation.
Okay. Now, what about beer?
Beer really doesn't have any medicinal effect. Wine has some real tannin effect.
Okay.
So beer really doesn't.
What about
in moderation?
What about a shot of whiskey every now and then?
There's never been one study that says it's good for you. So I'd have to say it's bad.
Okay. Maybe we can do that study, see how it works. Just joking around. Butter or margarine?
Margarine isn't really turning out to be as wonderful as everybody thinks it is. So butter in moderation is probably not as bad as people thought it is. But what does moderation really mean?
I don't know.
Again, depends on your own genetics and own numbers and how bad the butter is. But for the most part, butter is not good for you.
Is there such a thing as, quote-unquote, healthy fat?
There is.
Okay, what is healthy fat and what does it do?
So we all need fats in our body. These people that think that a non-fat diet entirely is good for you. But we know that the three food groups, such as protein, fats, and carbohydrates, should be in a moderation or should be in a small amount in your diet, because we need those in order for our cells to function in all areas of our body. So I'm a firm believer that you should have a small amount of fat in your diet. Again, functions the body in what we call hemostasis, meaning that it functions in a normal scenario. It varies on how much fat should be consumed on a daily basis. And again, these are all controversial issues.
Yep.
So a small amount, yes. A large amount, no.
What about a lifestyle such as being a vegan, vegetarian, or I guess you would say omnivore?
People that are true vegans do very well as long as they do get some of their additional protein from other sources. You know, that's always been the real issue, is the fact that they're not eating, you know, the meats, and that they have hormones when they produce, you know, these animals that we're eating, and whether or not we're ingesting those hormones that were placed into them. But vegan diets are very healthy, and I have a whole lot of friends and colleagues, actually, that have turned into a true vegan diet and are doing very well with it. The only problem is most of the vegans that I see, and I'm not criticizing anybody that's on it, is they look a little what's called emaciated to me. Yeah. They don't look like they're as healthy in their color and their face and in their eyes and in their functions. It just looks like they're missing a bit of that protein. But ones that really get the additional protein and look and do very well.
Is there any difference between animal and vegetable protein?
Yes. It's the way our body digests it. And some of the animal proteins can be much healthier as far as putting protein in your diet.
Okay.
As opposed to the other proteins that you can ingest.
Oh, see, this is great. Advice is for free, and like anything else, it's always good to have a good relationship with your doctor. See your doctor on a regular basis. I go to my doctors. I have a urologist, and I have my regular general practitioner who's a hypertension specialist, because high blood pressure runs in the family, and I've always been trying to deal with that as opposed to letting it become a great problem for me. So I try to lose as much weight as I can. I walk more. I drink water. And doctor, I have to say, my goal for one day, I don't know if it's ever possible, is to get off of all of the medications that I can't pronounce. Eplerenone. I finally figured out how to say Eplerenone. Wish I wasn't on it. Quinapril. Wish I wasn't on that. Finasteride. Wish I wasn't on that. And then there's a couple of others to help the prostate health. Like triple drugs, man. I get tired of taking that. So I look at my shelf. I'm like, look, I look like I'm an old person in an old folks home with all these bottles of medicine up here. Just like to stop using them. For those like me that would eventually like to get off these medicines, if at all possible, my major question before we wrap up, is it possible?
Yeah, it really is possible if you can really have enough dietary health and exercise health. Are the two major things, and avoid all the, quote, horrendous things that we do. Unfortunately, the smoking, even secondhand smoke, the excessive alcohol use, and lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You know, we get enough rest and all those things. And it sounds like, you know, you're making up all these fairy tales. But I have one real comment to make, and I think this is such a great way that people should understand these things. I think life is a game of statistics. Fortunately, the American Traffic Association has figured out that if you do wear a seatbelt and you are in an accident, you definitely have a better chance of surviving. So what we feel is that if we can, quote, lower our cholesterol below 200, take certain medications, and hopefully can get off of most of them if we do those healthy things, we can add a few statistical points so that we can live healthier, live longer, and certainly the quality of our life should markedly improve. And I think that's really how the analogy goes. And that's why I think something like a natural substance that really doesn't have any side effects, such as cholesterade, is such a great additive effect. And the other thing that we do, or my staff does, is they all are on it, is they'll take like a little scoop of it, put it in their water that they're walking around the office and taking care of what areas they have to do in the practice, and they just drink it as just having a really nice flavored drink, and here they're getting the medicinal benefit instead of just drinking, quote, plain water. So that seems to be the way to go, and I've seen a lot of my friends and colleagues and staffs doing the same thing. They just take a couple scoops, they throw it in their water, and it tastes good. So they're actually consuming more of the water on a daily basis and meeting their requirements.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goldfarb, for stopping by today. Dr. Goldfarb is our medical director here at Cholesterade. Make sure you take your Cholesterade each and every day. It's clinically proven to reduce cholesterol levels, promotes probiotic function, supports digestive health, all natural flavors. Find out more information at cholesterade.com. My doctor told me my cholesterol was way out of control and wanted me to take statins. Now, I didn't like the side effects, and after talking to my doctor, she told me all about Cholesterade. Cholesterade puts some hip in my hop and glide in my stride. Cholesterade not only reduces cholesterol, but it adds fiber to your diet. Cholesterade tastes great, and you're going to love it as much as I do. For more information, go to cholesterade.com and purchase Cholesterade on Amazon. Cholesterade, clinically proven to reduce cholesterol levels.